Hey everybody, and welcome back to Autumn Leigh at Home. I'm Autumn Leigh if you're new. Today we are going to do a large meal prep day where I am going to prep all kinds of things for a party I'm hosting on Monday. Today is Saturday. Monday I'm hosting our annual Christmas extravaganza cookie decorating party where we have about 20 to 25 people are going to be attending. And it's with friends and family, and I'm so excited because we do this every year where we get together and just have fun spending quality time together and making memories. So my goal today is to try to get as much done as possible so that on Monday I don't have to stress as much. I give myself a few goals every day. Today is my cooking day where I try to meal prep as much as I can to get it ready for Monday. Tomorrow I will be cleaning, and then Monday, the morning of, I will assemble everything, get everything together and organized, and that way when they show up, we will be ready to go. So today, follow along with me as we go ahead and get ready and meal prep all the things for Monday. To get started, I'm going to take you back to last night where I meal prepped all of this dough that we are going to be turning into garlic bread on Monday. My big party meal prep day is happening on Saturday. This is the Friday night before, and we are starting with our rustic loaves of bread. I'm going to tell you the recipe for one loaf of bread. I will put it down in the comments below, and you can follow along. I have quadrupled that recipe. I started off with 1.5 cups of warm water. I am now adding a half a teaspoon of active dry yeast. I will then add 2 teaspoons of salt and 3 1/4 cup of either all-purpose flour or bread flour. And you can see here I'm actually going to be using bread flour, which has more gluten and is specifically designed for baking bread. We are quadrupling the batch. I will put in the description, I will link the actual recipe from Becky at Acre Homestead. That way, if you want a printable version, you can have it, or you can follow along with her video, either one. But once we have all 4 of the ingredients in all 4 bowls, we are going to use a Danish dough whisk or a spoon, whatever you happen to have, and go ahead and mix this into a shaggy dough. Then you want to cover it and place it in a warm place in your house. Mine just happens to be on top of the stove because I have been cooking, and that way it will allow to rise for 6 to 8 hours. To get started, I'm going to go ahead and pull out my Dutch oven and preheat the Dutch oven in the oven for my bread. We're going to get started baking the bread. This is the part that's going to take the longest just because each one has to rise for 30 minutes and then bake for another about 45 minutes. So it takes a little time, and I just want to go ahead and get this started. So to start off, we will pull out our Dutch oven here and go ahead and place this into the oven and then turn the oven on to preheat so that they can heat up together. I'm going to preheat it to 450. All right, our oven is preheating to 450, so that's ready, and we'll go ahead and stick this in. I do have to take, and I baked not that long ago, so it's kind of warm. So I'm going to go ahead and take this one rack out, and that way my Dutch oven can fit. I always like to make sure there's nothing in it too. We're gonna let those warm up together and go ahead and get started on folding one of these. I'm just gonna go one at a time because I only have one Dutch oven. But I'm gonna go ahead and get started on folding these, and all of the process is gonna be the same for all of them. Sometimes I enjoy making fun special breads like roasted garlic basil bread. That's one of my all-time favorites. Or I think I've done like an apple butter cinnamon one time. Those are really fun to do, but when I'm planning for a big party, I don't really want to take the extra steps to do that process. So today they're just going to be very standard, but let me tell you, these loaves are one of my go-to. If you've been watching my channel for an extended period of time at all, you will see that I have baked these breads, but everybody loves them. It is Becky from Acre Homestead's recipe. I will put it down in the description below. That way, if you guys want to take a look at it, you are welcome to. But it's a very, very simple recipe. I'm going to make 4 of them. The process will be the same for all of them. We will put the Dutch oven in the oven. While that is preheating and heating up together, I will go ahead and fold the loaf of bread. We're going to let it rise for at least 30 minutes. 30 minutes to an hour is fine. And then you want to score the top. And I always put it on parchment paper and place the parchment paper with the dough in the oven with the lid on for 30 minutes. And then we'll take the lid off and let it cook for another 15 minutes. Now, I'm gonna double check that the recipe says 450 degrees. If not, I will increase the degree, but other than that, everything is all good to go. You will see me do this 4 times, and it's all gonna be the same process for each of them. I just have to let the oven or the Dutch oven reheat in between each one. I do put a little bit of water in between the parchment paper and the dough. You will see people also sometimes use ice cubes. They'll put an ice cube in there. I've never tried that one. I am tempted to try it. However, for a party, I'm gonna go with my tried and true because that's what I know. And I will try the ice cube on a different day when it's just me and my family. That way we can see which method we like more. But you could do either one. I like to put just a little bit of water in between the parchment paper and the Dutch oven once the Dutch oven is hot. The ultimate goal for either of those steps is to create steam. You want to create steam in your Dutch oven so that it creates a nice, beautiful crust on your rustic loaf of bread. It has been about 12 hours at this point that I am pulling these out of the bowl and going ahead and starting my stretch and folds. And I have gone up to 18, 24 hours. The first couple of these I squeeze in this morning, so it's been about 12 hours when I do it. However, as the day goes on, I am allowing these to rise a lot longer. I did notice that my very last one that evening ended up, the dough, you could tell it was not the best dough to work with, and I was definitely pushing the time frame of how long you should allow it to rise, and I think that was getting close to about 20, 24 hours at that point. This dough is first thing in the morning, so I am taking it, and what I want to do is organize the gluten. I have my parchment paper down. I sprinkled it lightly with flour, both on the parchment paper as well as on top, just because it's a very sticky dough at this point. You can either lightly wet your hands or use flour on your hands, whatever helps or allows you to fold this or stretch it a little bit without it sticking to you, because it can kind of gob up on your hands if you allow it to, and you can see it starting to here. My goal is to pinch and pull up the sides to the center and kind of pinch them in the center and rotate the dough and keep doing this all the way around, and you will start to notice that the dough starts becoming more dense and kind of taut and harder to pull up to the center. It's not as elastic as it felt when you first started. That's what you want to see. You want to start feeling that way, that it's getting almost more tight. And that means that the gluten is starting to form and organize. Well, not form, but organize. That allows it to rise and have that beautiful shape and the rustic loaf look. Here I'm taking it and putting it back in the same bowl I had it in, and just covering it up with a towel, putting it back in a warm place, which at this point, because my oven is preheating with the Dutch oven inside, it is definitely the warmest place in my house because it's right there on top. Now, I do want to go over my menu. I realized I haven't discussed my menu for this party yet. We are having about 20 to 25 people, as I said before, and that is a lot of people to cook for, especially when you're doing it alone and preparing everything by yourself. And so to do that, I try to pick a budget-friendly option that I can also prepare ahead of time that everybody loves. And in our family, everybody loves pasta of some sort. So my goal for today is to do fettuccine Alfredo with garlic bread, salad, and today we're doing Caesar salad, ice cream sandwich casserole, which I will show you what that looks like, as well as sugar cookie dough, which is one of the big things in the party. We are gathering together to decorate Christmas cookie. I call it my Christmas cookie extravaganza because we are not only eating together, but we are doing a cookie decorating party, as well as I typically like to do some sort of game or competition that they can earn a prize for. Last year, their prize was earning those yeast rolls that I had made before. This year, it is earning some fun Jello type candy that are just really fun to try. Every year, we always typically do some sort of arts and craft as well. A lot of times we will do a project where we paint everybody's hands and put them on a canvas in the shape of a wreath or even sometimes a Christmas tree. We have done snow globes in the past, though I will say that did not turn out how I had hoped they would. And then we've also made ornaments, just different fun things. This year, I don't have any of those planned because the time frame is just a little bit tighter, and we are missing a good number of people. Typically, we have anywhere from 20 to 30 people. We are going to be missing a couple of family members. So I don't plan to do that, but sometimes they talk me into it anyway. And I absolutely love doing these because it's so fun to get to see how the hands have changed over the years. A lot of people have grown up over the years, as well as, we get to add some new fun families members as well. So it's just really fun to get to do that and get to see the progression of the family. And my goal is just to try to prepare all of this as much as I can ahead of time. This year, the competition that we did is going to be the gingerbread houses. I did the practice run last week of making my own gingerbread houses. In the event that this turns out really well, we can do it next year, and I can actually make everything from scratch, which would be great. Right now, I have moved on from preparing the dough and allowing it to rise, and now working on the garlic. So for the fettuccine alfredo, I am mincing my own garlic, and I want to try to mince it and save it ahead of time in a way that I can just easily use it. The fettuccine alfredo is made using the garlic and minced garlic and oil at the very beginning. I kind of let it cook down in the bottom of the pan before adding our heavy cream as well as our Parmesan. And I want to make this ahead of time so that I don't have to mince it the day of, because that's just an extra step that I can skip. And to do that, I am going to mince it today, add a little bit of olive oil to the minced garlic itself, mix it up, and then just kind of plop it and dab it onto a piece of parchment paper. Go ahead and stick it in the freezer in those little dollops of minced garlic. Let it freeze that way, and then the day of, all I have to do is take those little dollops or garlic pucks out of the freezer and put them in the pan, let them cook down, and then our first step for the Alfredo sauce will already have been completed. Our 30 minutes for our first loaf of bread is up, and now comes the fun part of getting to score the bread. I lightly cover the bread with flour and just kind of pat it on or rub it on a little bit. You don't have to rub it on. I do that to give it that nice even coat of flour, so that once you put the design on the loaf, you can actually see it a lot better if it's been floured beforehand. Once you have scored your bread, you're ready to get your Dutch oven out of the oven. I do go ahead and try to have the water handy and ready to go. That way we don't lose out on any of the steam or the heat from the Dutch oven that you've built up in there. Try to move somewhat quick, just kind of stay on pace. Don't dilly-dally once you take the lid off. You want to go ahead and transfer the parchment paper with the dough in it into the Dutch oven and add your little bit of water, and then you quickly put the lid back on. Make sure you keep the mitt on the lid handle, because I have burnt myself so many times just reaching for it, and you can see I almost did it again. Thankfully the mitten was on it and I didn't burn myself this time, but it's so easy to just want to grab that lid, because typically other lids the handle doesn't become hot. On Dutch ovens they do. The correct temperature is 450 degrees, and I went ahead and got our first loaf in the oven, so we are on a roll. And I'm gonna set a timer for 30 minutes, and then in 30 minutes we will take the lid off and let it bake for another 15. And we got our garlic pucks finished for our fettuccine alfredo. The sauce requires garlic in it, so we were able to make minced garlic from scratch. The next two things at the very least I need to do are shred our cheese, as well as go ahead and make our noodles. I think I'm gonna go ahead and boil those up, put a little bit of olive oil in them, and put them in the refrigerator. And then come Monday, I just need to kind of warm them up a little bit to allow them to separate so they don't break. I learned that trick from a family member recently, so I'm gonna utilize it now so that I can go ahead and make them, and they are ready to go come Monday. And we I believe we'll have one or two more things and then we'll be done. But in the meantime throughout all of these steps, I am constantly keeping that bread going. That way we can make sure that we get all 4 loaves finished. Once the loaves are finished, I will freeze them, and come Monday, I will slice them, butter them up, put garlic, salt, and Italian seasoning on them.
Throughout the rest of the video, you will occasionally see me either in the background or in the forefront working with the dough and the bread, constantly changing it out, keeping it going. Just know all the steps are the exact same. It goes in for 30 minutes at 450, take the lid off for 15, and then it's all done. You can tell that it's finished by tapping the bottom of your bread. Just be careful not to burn yourself. But if you hear a hollow sound, that's how you know. I would also recommend not cutting into these loaves until they have fully cooled, unless you plan to pretty much eat the whole thing in one sitting, which we have done before for like a dinner or something. Bake it and then just go ahead and eat it because it is delicious warm. However, if you cut into it too soon, if it's not fully cooled, then once it does kind of cool and dry, it becomes almost gummy, more of a gummy texture versus a bread texture. So if you're going to enjoy it in the moment, that's great. But if you don't feel like you're going to finish the loaf, I would recommend just waiting until it's fully cooled. I'm doing this voiceover after we had the party, and this method worked out great. So I was very grateful for that tip from a family member that you can go ahead and prepare your noodles ahead of time, maybe mix a little bit of olive oil in there, which I do that anyway because I use that instead of salt to keep them from sticking to each other. And I did just let them cool down in this pot, and then I just stuck the whole pot in the refrigerator. And then come Monday, all I did was put a little bit of warm water in it, and the noodles separated immediately. They did not take long. We did warm them up a little bit just so that once we put the sauce in there, the sauce wouldn't become cold because the noodles were in the refrigerator. But I didn't have to cook anything, and the noodles tasted great. The texture was great. I had no problem. So that was definitely a win in my books by going ahead and doing this, because it was one less step again that I had to do on Monday. I was able to just go ahead and dump the sauce right in once we drained the noodles a little bit, and it was good to go. I absolutely love this time of year and getting to host people that I love, my friends and family, allowing them to come over. And I'm blessed with this house. I want to pass it and use it and fill it with laughter and joy of my friends and family. And does everything turn out perfect? Absolutely not. There's always hiccups, there's always things that go wrong, but you just kind of roll with it. I think the idea is more that you're spending time together, and it's more important to have that time together versus having everything perfect and being the perfect hostess. I think for me, just knowing that we get to have this time together is really special, and we don't always get to do that. It's a very specific time of year that we get to come together and enjoy each other's company. If you are new to hosting or party planning, it can be super overwhelming, and giving yourself goals one step at a time is such a huge help. And I just want to encourage you guys that it is doable. You do not have to have the most extravagant meals. This is such a simple meal, and I could doctor this up. I could add a protein, add some chicken to it. But I think the idea is more of the time that we get to spend together versus such a massive upscale meal. I think that it's more important that we focus on the time together, and they absolutely love this meal. Thankfully, it's kind of a win-win, all of the above. You could also add a vegetable to it. We sometimes have added roasted broccoli. This year I did a salad instead. It's just whatever you make it, you can enjoy it. Think of things that your family or friends that you're hosting enjoy, and try to go with one of those. For this particular party, I'm not worried about trying to prepare everything ahead of time. I do want to get the bulk of it finished ahead of time because it will help me to focus on getting to, or more, not even focus, but more relax the day of. I have a hard time relaxing at the party because I just get a little antsy and want to do everything. But this helps me with that. It helps me to be able to relax a little bit more. But I'm completely fine not getting it all finished because we actually enjoy at this particular party getting to cook together. I enjoy that time that I spend with my family in the kitchen and getting to cook all of the things and prepare all of the things together. And they don't mind it at all. It's just kind of, I don't think I purposely planned that tradition. I think it was just something that kind of happened out of necessity the first one or two times that I hosted this party. And ever since we've done this party, it's been about 9 years now that I've done this party and hosted it. And every year we prepare all of the food together. So even though I have a lot of the steps completed, we're able to actually finish preparing it together in the kitchen. And that's really sweet time together as well that I've come over the years to enjoy, and I hope they do too. I'm kind of speaking for myself here. I'm hoping that they also enjoy that time and that they look back and see that that was time that we got to spend talking together, standing side by side, not staring at a screen, not looking at a phone, and being able to get to know each other a little bit better. This is the ice cream sandwich casserole that I was talking about. It is a budget friendly way to feed dessert to a whole lot of people at one time. And everybody absolutely loves it whenever I make it. It is such an easy, simple thing to do. All you do is unwrap a bunch of ice cream sandwiches. You do have to move a little quick so that they don't melt. And then you spread whipped cream across the top, drizzle whatever topping you want. You can do strawberry syrup, you could do chocolate syrup, caramel syrup. I do chocolate and caramel because those are my two favorites. And you just stick it back in the freezer. So it's something you can make ahead of time for a large quantity of people. Is it healthy? Absolutely not. And I can venture to say that pretty much nothing I make today was healthy. However, it's Christmas and it's our time to be able to enjoy these things and not really feel quite as guilty about it. But this one is one that you can make ahead of time, put in the freezer. So even if you have a free time a week ahead of time, this one was only 2 days ahead of time, but you can do this one even a week ahead of time. This is such a simple, budget friendly way to make a dessert for a large number of people. It isn't from scratch. You could make it from scratch, but on this day, I'm more focused on trying to be budget friendly as well as make food that can feed large numbers of people. If I'm being completely honest, at this time of day, I started feeling really run down and tired and questioning whether I actually wanted to make my sugar cookie dough. But I pushed myself. I went ahead and told myself that no, all my dishes are already dirty. I'd rather go ahead, my kitchen's dirty, and get all of this done all in one day so that I can enjoy it later. And I'm glad I did that. It is important to take care of yourself and know your limits. I think I did push my limit a little far because I literally spent all day in the kitchen this day. And I think next time I probably need to maybe splice it up a little bit. But I am glad that I was able to knock all of this stuff out ahead of time, go ahead and get those sugar cookies done and in the fridge. That way I didn't have to worry about it later. This I believe, is loaf number 3. We're about halfway finished at this point. These probably would have gone a little bit faster if I had been more diligent about timing of going ahead and starting one before the other ones were finished, but I wasn't stressed about it because I was literally in the kitchen all day anyway. So as I was going, I just made sure to try to keep them moving and keep them going, but I'm sure I probably could have timed them a little bit better so that they would have gotten done sooner or quicker. But either way, we are halfway through these. Now it's about time for us to get started on our sugar cookie dough. To get started on our sugar cookies, I'm going to mix 2 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, half a teaspoon of baking powder, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Then you want to whisk them together and then just set it aside and get started on the wet ingredients. I forgot to mention that I actually doubled this recipe. So the ingredients I'm telling you are what the ingredients are listed as on the website. Everything that you see me putting in the bowl is actually going to be doubled. So the amount that we end up with looks like more than what you will see if you do the recipe as it's written. To get started on the wet ingredients, we want to put 3/4 cups of unsalted butter, and you want to make sure it's softened or room temperature. I put mine in the microwave for about 15 seconds or 10 seconds just to kind of get it a little softer, and then put it all in the bowl. Then you want to add 3/4 cup of granulated sugar. And as you can tell, I couldn't remember how much sugar I actually added, so I had to try to remeasure it out, which worked out just fine because the only other ingredient in there was the butter. So I was able to figure it out and tell, but I lost count, so make sure you keep count of how much you're putting in there. After finally sorting out how much sugar I had put in the bowl, it was time to go ahead and add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract and 1 large egg at room temperature. The only other ingredient after those 2 ingredients, you have the option, it's optional, it doesn't say you're required to put it in there. I think it's just to add extra flavor, is to add either 1/4 or 1/2 teaspoon of almond extract. Again, that's totally optional. If you happen to have it, it could definitely boost the flavor of the cookie. We don't have it, nor do I plan to go buy it just for this. So we're just gonna make do with our homemade vanilla extract, which also adds extra flavor and is fantastic. Absolutely love it. And then it's time to put it on the stand mixer. Go ahead and let it fully combine. Once it's fully combined, I start adding about 1/2 cup or 1 cup of flour at a time, letting it mix and then adding another one in. While we're doing this process, I keep the bread going. So here I'm scoring that 3rd loaf, and then we'll move on to putting it in the oven again. Sometimes I think it's fun to show you guys the behind the scenes look of how I'm filming, where the stand is, what the kitchen looks like in the process, how it looks like a total disaster. I know on YouTube we can always paint this picture of a beautiful clean kitchen with all this perfect sight of angles where the camera doesn't show the mess, but there is definitely mess in the background. And sometimes I think it's important for us to share that with you guys so that you know that our kitchen probably looks just like your kitchen in the mess. And if you agree with that, give me a thumbs up and give that encouragement in the comments. It would be great because I hope that all of you guys out there know that when you're cooking, sometimes that happens and that's okay. We will get it cleaned up eventually. This sugar cookie recipe comes from sallysbakingaddiction.com. It is a wonderful recipe that I have now been using for about 9 years and have never had any problems with it. It is very simple. We are mixing this on Saturday. It will be used on Monday, so it's going to be resting in the fridge for up to 2 days. The recipe online does say that up to 2 days is just fine in the fridge. It says to allow it to rest, let the dough rest for at least 1 to 2 hours in the refrigerator after mixing it before you bake the cookies. Typically I do that, but I will say there's been a year or two that we've done these sugar cookies and we all mixed it together and then just immediately rolled it out and baked it. Even when I did that, these still turned out fantastic. So I would recommend that if you have the time for it. If you don't be afraid to still use this recipe, because for us, we never had any problems with it. The cookies come out nice, light and fluffy and just really sweet, which is what you expect from a sugar cookie. Because I'm not actually baking these cookies in this video, I will show you the end product on a little clip that I did at the party. That way you can see kind of how they turned out, what they look like. But because we're not actually baking them together, I did want to go ahead and kind of finish telling you how to bake them. That way, if you do follow this video, you get a good idea. But we preheat the oven to 350 degrees, and one of my favorite parts about this get together is we all gather around this big island that we have. I completely clean it off, wipe and clean the counters off, and put flour all over the island. And then we all gather around it and we cut out our cookies together. I have a ton of little cutout cookie cutters that we all share, and we're able to just, again, spend that time in the kitchen enjoying each other's company. It's fun to see which cookie cutters each person gets and what they decide to do with their cookie dough. But this cookie dough, when I doubled the recipe, was able to help 12 kids. So it gave 12 kids about 3 or 4 cookies to work with, enough dough for 3 or 4 cookies each. And that was just perfect. That gave them enough to make for Santa to leave on Christmas Eve. And we were able to cut them out and cook them together. The recipe says to bake them, I believe, 11 to 13 minutes. I only bake them for 8. I just noticed that if I go any longer, they start burning. 8 is the perfect number for us. We bake them for 8 minutes and then they are good to go. I fully allow them to cool before decorating, and then we just enjoy decorating. Now we are on our final and 4th loaf, and you can tell that I've let this one proof or rise a little bit too long and it's still fine. The dough is still great. The bread still turned out fantastic, but it is a little bit harder to work with at this point. I think it was 24 hours after we had mixed it, so it had been sitting for a little bit longer than the others, and it just was a little bit stickier than the typical dough that you would work with, but it still turned out great. We had no problems with it rising, so it was just fine. But I am grateful that this is the last one. We were able to pull it together and pinch it at the top. Then I let it rest for 30 minutes, scored it, put it in the oven for 30 minutes with the lid on, and 15 minutes with the lid off, like I did all of the other ones. And we came out with some beautiful 4 loaves. I was able to gift one of these to a neighbor, and then the other 3 we turned into garlic bread.
The last thing that we have to complete today is the cheese. We need to shred a lot of cheese for our garlic bread as well as our Alfredo sauce. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that started because that's something that I would rather do today than have to shred a lot of cheese on the day of. And then we can store it in the fridge until we're ready to use it, and then we'll be good to go.
I didn't end up getting all of the cheese shredded that I needed to get shredded. I did finish all of the Parmesan for our Alfredo sauce. I did not get to the Colby Jack cheese. The Colby Jack cheese is the one I like to add to our garlic bread. That one I decided to go ahead and just do teamwork on the day of. We can work on it together if we need to. I have to admit my arm got really tired after doing 3 wedges of Parmesan. So I just called it a night and we will pick up where we left off.
It is the end of the day and we were able to get all the things done. And I'm so excited about that because that means that hopefully on Monday, instead of spending all of my time in the kitchen preparing food, I am able to spend that time with my friends and family and make those sweet memories. We were able to get 4 loaves of rustic bread baked, as well as, most importantly, our cookie dough, which is one of the big things that we're going to get to do for the cookie decorating party, the Christmas cookie decorating extravaganza. I have all of the cookie dough made. It is in the fridge resting until Monday when we can use it. We went ahead and minced our garlic, shredded our cheese, and boiled our noodles. We were able to get a lot done today, and that way we are better prepared for Monday. So thank you for joining me. Thank you so much for being here, and please like, subscribe, and share. And guys, I hope you'll have a Merry Christmas this week and a Happy New Year. I hope to see you guys next time.